movers and what traders and investors are really focused on. All right, and so I'll introduce that. I will be making a follow-up video on how to create your own. All right, so that you can kind of know how to create it and then potentially customize it to better fit what you're looking for. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is the market wrap for September 18th, 2019. SPY is just about flat here, and then the Qs are also getting close there, just down 0.1%. Okay, so the big thing that's going to stand out on the charts here are this big shakeout here. All right, that the news came out, FOMC, kind of leading that maybe in the future we're not going to get more rate adjustments or more rate cuts. And so initial reaction there, but now right back up. And even prior to just even 30 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago, we were talking about this, and I was saying, this really gives us a place to now kind of put our line in the sand where we would no longer be bullish. So going into tomorrow, we are still going to be bullish because we have a buy set up here on the Qs here. We also have one on the SPY that now has a big bottoming tail to tell us where the bottom of the pivot is. So we get to see where demand support will step up kind of in a hurry. So that a very nice bounce off of those lows there, right? Coming into today, we did have a bullish bias, expecting sell-offs to get bought, right? And that remains to be the case. So going into tomorrow, still gonna be bullish. It did look pretty bearish initially when we were selling off, right? And there is still the possibility that we come into tomorrow and it erases this rally that we got over the last 30 minutes, okay? And if that happens and we break underneath today's low, we're gonna shift to a neutral bias, okay? So what we got here is a very nice, well-defined point, okay? Basically today's low on the Qs here, that is gonna be right there at 190.11. So that should hold. As long as that holds, we will remain bullish. If that breaks, we will switch to neutral and potentially look for the next setup. We still are a couple setups away from shifting to a bearish bias, remaining neutral going into tomorrow. Okay? All right, so that is the market bias for tomorrow. Let's go over the plays from today. Just a couple plays here. Okay, did give a shot here on the BIOS. Had a nice run up in the morning, got this little bit of a breakout, but the breakout did not want to follow through. Immediate reversal there. So we said, let's kill it a little bit early, under 73. Didn't make much of a difference, but wouldn't have worked there. So partial loss there on the BIOS. Okay, here was the daily. Getting maybe a little bit novice on the long term there, but it was showing some nice strength there, potential for a little bit more follow through in to dig deeper into this resistance. Turns out it found the top right at the open, and we did just kind of get triggered in. It told us right away that that was the end of the buying, so we did get out of that one there. And then coming into lunch here came play number 2. All right, IOTS here was a short here. We played it as a pro gap, gapping underneath this base. Keep in mind the news here was a private offering. It is the equivalent of the issuance of debt. Hopefully you've seen me go over these before, but I always consider those kind of gaps pretty bearish. Not the same as your secondary offering, as a public offering, a selling of new shares. Okay, this is going to be a typically more bearish event. So the call on this was underneath that bottoming tail there, 905 by 918. All right, looking for 890 as the first target. Nice drop there. Took half, took another quarter, and took the final piece there over. I think it was 65. 865 was the final piece. So definitely more than made up for the BIOS, at least twice over. So that was good on the IOTS. Nice breakdown here. Even got a secondary entry there right underneath that bottoming tail. That's where we entered it. And then once it got going, got nice follow. I think the market started to come in at this time. But for the most part, I think this IOTS was on its own page. You can see that, as the market was kind of gyrating up and down. This really wanted to go lower and find an area of support. Now it's started to kind of rally here as the market has rallied and found a bottom. Okay, but this I think can be considered pretty much on its own page for most of the day here and doing what it needed to do. Sellers needed to get their business done here as it was breaking the uptrend, as it was doing its kind of private placement there. Would have liked to have seen it get to 850, but we did get to kind of 860 something. I thought that was pretty close. And so we did kind of take it here near the end of the day. Now, how do I know if something is on its own page or not? Because there's a lot of things that we look at, and most things are not going to be. I know someone brought this to my attention today, the Tesla that was showing some weakness at the open. But, it's the kind of thing that, is this really going to move? I know it's here at the lows, or is it going to do some variation of the market? Okay, and that's the tool that I want to introduce today here, okay? And so this is just a Google spreadsheet, and so you may not be aware that Google allows you to pull data and then actually will look up certain, based on the function, things for you. So you can see here, this will look up the price here of the symbol, can tell you what its average volume, current volume here. So if you just search, you can find a lot of these. I'm going to do a video just on going over the ones that I use. There's quite a few here. It'll tell you a close and open. So the one that I usually look at the most is sorting them by their percentage increase in volume. Okay, so here we have like the average volume over the last 30 trading days, and then here is today's volume. Okay, and once you sort that, and I also keep the Qs on this list, so I can see, okay, how much volume is the Qs doing today. Okay, so once I sort that, it gives me a good way to kind of prioritize the symbols that I see. So you can see here, IOTS on the list right here, that it's done almost 10 times what it typically does. So I know that traders care. And it's more likely, right, to put in a nice big move, right, like we got on the IOTS, okay? And of course, nothing really beats this MDR here, right? MDR, which some people may have played it long here into the close. It was given to the room as an idea just at the end here to play back into the 20 MA. Okay, so it was actually played as a climactic buy setup. Okay, but you can see here also doing a lot of volume here. Okay, and then when we get down into the bottom of this list, you can see maybe these really are not likely to move a lot today. Okay, not really go anywhere. Okay, and that's the kind of thing that I typically want to avoid. I don't want to get trapped in one of those only to see it kind of gyrate back and forth. See, if you look at this ZUO, right, this is really market dependent. It's going to do very similar to whatever the market decides to do, which is, okay, this was kind of moving its way lower, got some shakeout, and then rallied here kind of near the open at the end of the day, just like the Qs in SPY, right? So, these are the things that I don't really want to participate in because they're really market dependent. The amount of movement that they're going to get is low. So I sort this, I can see where the market is, right? And then which are the things that are really getting a lot of attention. Of course, FedEx, right? FedEx was on its own page. That reported earnings, right? Stayed at the lows here, didn't really participate in the market rally. So this is the kind of thing, you get a pro gap down, you want to look to see if that is going to stay weak and then stay in it as long as you can because, that's the kind of thing that should do its own thing. CDW had a nice move here at the open, all right, and then eventually did kind of participate with the market. The news was that this was being added to the S&P 500, so as expected, it might be actually a little bit more market dependent, but was given as an idea in the morning as a long and did get to a target there. ZYNE was a couple calls from Sammy there to be played short, okay? And you can see kind of the volume that comes in. Now, you don't have to use this tool. What I recommend, if you want to be a little bit more focused on the charts, you don't really have space on your screens just for another kind of spreadsheet to look at. Usually you can just tell from the opening range, especially the 15-minute is what I like to use. If this is getting a lot of attention, you can see it doesn't matter how many days we go back. Well, I'm sure eventually if you go back far enough, you'll find one with similar opening volume, but this is pretty much off the charts type of volume right here. Okay, and same thing with the IOTS that we played, right? Is that a lot of stuff here, but you can barely even see the volume bars here. So here's just another way to kind of put that in a more kind of concrete way. And then it really comes in handy in the pre-market and the post-market. So I'll rank the gaps here in the morning. Anything that isn't ranked means we found it later in the day, so it wasn't during my pre-market process. And then as we go through the day, I also highlight things that I think should be reviewed at the end of the day. Okay, so it's a nice little tool here. It's by no means going to replace the kind of the requirement for charts and for watch lists. Okay, but as far as just reorganizing to see, okay, what do people care about? And there's probably plenty of platforms that can do this for you within your platform, and you don't need this. But it's also useful in the pre-market to get some notes down as far as what I'm going to be prioritizing, and then in the post-market, right, to go back and look at these, and so I can say, okay, which things, because what I care about especially is, all right, what moved a lot since the open? Where was there opportunity? Yeah, this LXRX we actually talked about it yesterday too, if you recall, that this was breaking into a void area on the daily. So if that's the case, how do you manage something like this, right? And so, and then some of these may put up big percentages because they're low priced, and so like a 10-20 cent move isn't really is just going to result in a bigger percentage. But it's an objective way to say kind of what was the gap, what was my focus, and then how much did they really move during the day, right? So it's something that you can be on the lookout for in the future. If you're interested in a tool like this, I'll go over kind of the functions, how to set this up, how it gets used day in and day out. A lot of platforms will do this for you. I mean, I've moved from different platforms before, and I've kind of always used this as kind of like a nice baseline and a nice kind of consistent way to look at what's moving, what is the exact size of the gap, things like that. Some platforms will do that for you, some won't, but that's what I use, and it's just free. You just open up a Google spreadsheet, and if you put in the right functions, it'll pull the data. There is a little bit of delay. It's not something I look at in the morning, especially like right at the open or anything, but as the day progresses, it's really useful. Okay. All right, so just be on the lookout for that if you think that can benefit you. All right, otherwise, that's going to do it for today's market wrap. Okay, I hope you did well today. I did think that IOTS was pretty good, and usually if I'm going to call something right at lunch, it's going to have to be pretty close to perfect. All right, but a nice little play. I know some people played it with me on the IOTS, so a nice little short there. Market sell-off probably helped us a little bit. All right, but I hope you did well today. If not, we'll be back at it tomorrow, and I will talk to you then. All right, have a good evening.